Hi, everyone. I'm Haithem Amir. I'm a senior at Howard University, and welcome to a student's intro to alternative investments. In this series, we get the chance to learn directly from today's leaders in the alternative investment industry. And in this episode, we'll be exploring the role of advisors in alternatives with Danielle Delongchamp, President as well as CEO of Concorde Investment Services and President of Concorde Asset Management. Danielle, it's a real privilege to have you here with us today. And before we dive into the conversation, I'd love for you to share a little bit in your own words about your background as well as what drives your work.
Well, thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. It's a real honor as well, and I appreciate being asked. So I've been in the industry for just over 20 years, which is hard to believe. I started out in a very operational role, learning how to open new accounts, learning how to process transfers, learning how to trade. And from there, I just wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn everything I could about the industry. I decided to go get my licenses and my MBA and just kept kind of climbing from there. I actually got my undergrad degree in elementary education. So I was destined to be a teacher, or I thought so. At the time that I graduated, there were very few open teaching positions at the time, but I needed to work. I needed to be able to pay my bills. So I found a broker-dealer in the town that I grew up in. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I thought, well, that's an office work. I can figure this out. And I loved it. And here I am almost 21 years later.
Thank you for sharing that. But I want to go a little bit back to the beginning of your journey. So I know you touched on saying you spent 20 years in the financial services industry and now you lead as CEO. So looking back, what initially drew you into this industry, kind of transitioning from elementary education, and what key experiences have shaped your path to leading Concorde now?
That's a great question. When I started in the industry, like I said, I started really a very operational role, kind of at the bottom. And what I really enjoyed was being able to help people. It was being able to help our reps support their clients, get their money to them, help them place a trade. I mean, it was very basic stuff at the time. And then when I was probably around 30, I joined a financial advisor directly. I thought I would move to that side of the business, and kind of that sales side, and I loved working with the clients directly. I really, really enjoyed that. But I very quickly learned I'm not a salesperson at all, and I really enjoy that behind-the-scenes space. And so I went back into the broker-dealer side because at the end of the day, this is a relationship business, and I love helping people. I love contributing towards somebody living their financial dream, saving for their dream house, saving for retirement, or putting their kids or grandkids through college.
That's very inspiring. And now, given your path, I really want to touch on something very important. The alternatives in financial advisory space is still very male-dominated, especially at the executive level. So what challenges did you face as a woman just rising through the ranks, and how did you overcome them?
Very good question. I will say that imposter syndrome really impacted me deeply, especially when I was younger. And I've always worked with really supportive team members and bosses that I've had in the past that have really always given me space. But I think I got to that place because I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to share new ideas. And I don't stay quiet. And that's the best advice I can give anyone. Even the interns that work at Concorde, they ask me the same question. How did you get involved? How did you, continue to climb the ladder? And I just continue to ask questions and learn as much as I can.
What was it like just really overcoming that imposter syndrome? And at what point in your career did you felt like you deserved to be in the room?
Candidly, sometimes it still creeps in. And I had a conversation with a few colleagues 2 days ago, and they said the same thing, and a couple of them were older than me. So I think it can waver in and out, but I try to remember to be confident, and I remind myself that I know what I'm doing. I've done this for so long. This is what I was meant to do. And so it's kind of like some self-talk. I have to kind of hype myself up.
Definitely. So thank you so much for that perspective. I want to shift gears a little bit because many students like myself often first encounter advisors just through the lens of stocks and bonds. And so I know advisors clearly play a much bigger role. So how do they expand access and guidance when it comes to alternative investments?
A lot of our advisors will leverage their broker-dealer, like us, for training and education. We encourage them to leverage our strategic partners and sponsors to learn everything they can about different products. Something I really see at our firm that I love to see this is some of our reps will set up time with sponsors and just pick their brain about certain topics or a type of product and ask questions. Communication is super important to me too, and so I'm all about asking questions and talking through complexities because alternatives are very complex, as you may know.
That is a great point on alternatives being very complex, and they can feel very intimidating at times, especially for a lot of clients who are very new to them. So how do you think advisors should approach building trust and educating clients without oversimplifying those risks and nuances to the industry?
Really great question. To start, it's critical to build that trust, to remain transparent with their clients, to make sure that they are communicative with them. And from there, they need to make sure that they fully understand what they're selling a client. They do all the background work, all the research so that they fully understand what they're trying to recommend to a client. All of our reps are required to do an education module before they offer an alternative investment to their customers. But it's critical that the advisor fully understands everything that's going on before meeting with their investors. Again, that trust is the base.
Like you said, education and trust are very crucial to this, and that ties directly just into innovation. And so I know you've led efforts to modernize technology at Concorde. So how do you see technology, specifically AI as well, just reshaping the advisor-client relationship, especially in the context of alternatives?
There's a lot of really great technology that's out there already that helps streamline processing of alternatives, for example, the paperwork processing, the integrating digital signature. We now live in this really digital remote world. So there's a lot of great technology that allows for our reps to work with a client that lives across the country. But I really see AI shaping this industry in such a positive way. There's a lot of conversation about AI replacing people or replacing certain things, and I don't see AI replacing people, or I don't see it in a negative light. I see AI helping us streamline communication and streamline education and the research component. I just see it helping us get better.
And with that point, how do you really see the role of advisors shifting with the integration of AI?
I think it's going to help them be better. I know that sounds kind of simple, but I feel like it's going to help them be more efficient, serve their customers better, provide them with more timely responses, more research, more education, and just a better overall experience because we do have tools now that allow for easier processing. We have a proprietary tool at Concorde that allows our reps to kind of run certain scenarios through it and build portfolios and can share this with their client. And it's a great way of doing due diligence themselves and being really transparent with the customer.
It's definitely fascinating about all the things you guys are leveraging AI as well as these different modernizing technologies within Concorde. And just speaking of the next generation of advisors, many college students are very eager to enter this field, whether as advisors or on the asset management side. And so from your perspective, what skills or experiences should students really prioritize early on to stand out in this industry?
I recommend getting an internship and doing a few with different types of firms because while we all offer very similar things, similar products, we all do things differently. And so I do recommend an internship or, like I said, 2 or 3. I also recommend working on those licenses sooner rather than later, starting with the SIE and then moving to a 7 and a 66. Or if you want to go the asset management route, looking at a CFA as an example. I also recommend continuing to ask those questions when you're at those firms doing internships. Ask if you can help with reading due diligence materials, reading PPMs, just so you can learn how to spot things and where to look for different things. The internships is really strong. I feel like that's really important, is getting in the real life situations, is seeing how a firm runs. And it'll also help you figure out where you want to focus and which direction you would want to go.
Definitely. And when those students are in those internships, how would you recommend for them to get the most out of it and really learn as much as they can and absorb as much?
I have an intern right now, actually, and we have these conversations. And I told him, and what I'll tell you and our listeners is, ask as many questions as you can of everyone there, as well as ask where you can help. Where can you help with a project? Where could you do some research? Where's a resource where you could learn more about alternatives or another area of the business if that's what you're interested in? So it's really just when you join, just dive right in. Get involved with as much as you can.
Definitely. That's incredibly valuable advice to us and all of our listeners. And to close on a personal note, you've spoken a lot about building a culture of performance and accountability while also valuing a balanced and purpose-driven life at Concorde. So how do you personally just stay grounded and lead with purpose in such a high-stakes industry?
Thank you for the question. It's a really important one, too. And what I will share is I set boundaries, which is hard to do. It's not by any means easy, but I set boundaries and I make sure that I take care of myself and my family, as well as make time for fun with friends and stuff. But I make sure to exercise, and I also encourage my team to be doing the same thing.
So again, a big thank you to Danielle Delongchamp for sharing your time and insights with us today. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And we hope you enjoyed this conversation on the role of advisors in alternatives as much as we did. And if you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And we'll be back soon with more expert insights and student perspectives on alternative investments.
Thank you so much for having me.